Anna's cry faded as she went underwater, the cold abyss welcoming her as she continued her descent. Shock and fear gave the water an advantage, and her panic pulled her deeper and deeper until she had no air left. Bubbles formed around her as she gulped in water, her eyelids fluttering open and closed as she stared into the dark abyss with wide eyes. The events of the past few minutes replayed in her mind like a haunting vision. Up to the moment Jessica pushed her overboard. Anger surged through her, giving her the clarity to stop her descent, but she was already far down in the depths. A few minutes earlier, Alex had just stepped onto the side deck when he heard the loud cry, at the same time as Andrew and the others on the opposite deck. Seeing Jessica by the side rail, a deep fear pierced through Alex. Trying to cover up, Jessica yelled, "Anna tripped." Aria rose from her seat in a daze. "Jesus," she murmured under her breath in shock. Nathaniel sprang up along with Andrew, Tom Hill, and everyone else on the yacht's deck. Anita pulled Liam close as Andrew yelled, "Man overboard!" He then ran to the end of the yacht, kicking off his trousers and pulling off his hooded jacket before leaping into the water. Jake, Aidan, and Charles, who had heard Andrew's cry, ran down the side deck of the ship. Alex was about to jump into the water, but Jake pulled him back. "Let me go, Jake! Anna!" Alex shouted in terror. "Hey, calm down," Jake warned. "We're better trained for this. Let us get her for you," he assured him. Alex's chest heaved as he struggled to contain his emotions before he gingerly nodded. The thought of losing Anna just when he had gotten her back made his heart hurt, but he knew Nathaniel's men would do a better job of finding her. "Please, Jake, she is my everything," he rasped. Jake nodded in understanding. People started to gather by the guardrail, many of them confused about what had happened and who had fallen overboard. Among them was Ethan. "I was just coming out of the restroom when I saw her trip. I think she was startled, but I can't be sure," Alex heard Jessica saying to a group, and he turned in her direction. Profound anger surged through Alex as he marched to her side, grabbed her forearm, and pulled her to face him. "You lying bitch," he growled. "You fucking pushed her." Jessica's expression turned to anger as she retorted, "Did you see me push her? Typical of you to assume the worst of me just because I happened to be on the scene." Noria, who was on the other yacht and had witnessed the blonde girl push the other dark-haired girl, interjected, "I did." Her voice came out low and gruff. Then she repeated more loudly, "I saw you push her." A gasp filled the air. Alex recoiled and punched Jessica on the nose. Her loud, agonizing cry echoed through the air as she instinctively covered her bleeding nose with her hand. Emitting a low growl, she glared furiously at Alex. "Hey! You broke my nose, you son of a bitch." As Alex moved to grab her again, Jessica lunged at him with evident fury. Before the two could tear into each other, Will stepped in between them. "I got this," he said to Alex, patting him on the shoulder. He then grabbed Jessica, yanked her by the forearm, and held both her hands behind her back. Using his tie, he tied her wrists and pushed her towards the Harvard school president, who had gone pale at the discovery. Ethan, who was at the far end of the crowd, fought to get close to the scene, but only got trapped against the guardrails. "How could you do that?" the school president exclaimed, his voice a mix of shock and bemusement. "They're lying about me," she retorted. "What should we do with her?" Will inquired. "I'm still in shock. Just when we thought the worst was behind us." "What's wrong with you, Jessica?" the man remarked, sounding deeply disturbed. "You can't just push people overboard." "They're lying," Jessica protested. Then she glanced towards the yacht and saw Nathaniel, Aria, and their crew members glaring at her. She scoffed and shouted, "She deserved it!" The school president sighed disappointedly. "Can you find somewhere to restrain her until it's safe to let her out? My God, she's lost her mind," the older man said. "Gladly," Will replied, pulling her away from the older man and pushing her toward one of the crew members. "Please tell me you have a place to confine this woman," Will asked the crew member. Jessica tried to turn around to spit on him, but Will held her steady, causing her to cry out in pain. "Oh, we have a cell, all right," the crew member replied. "Follow me," he invited. "You'll all be hearing from my lawyer," Jessica yelled. "You must be dim-witted because everyone just heard you admit to pushing Miss Anna, and in case you haven't noticed," Will paused to point at cameras embedded at every corner of the ship, "you were just at the right angle." "You're a psycho," Will added. "Idiot," she yelled in response. Will pushed her forward, causing her to stagger, and she growled in frustration like a feral cat. Meanwhile, Andrew ventured into the dark abyss of the water, his heart racing with worry. The water was murky, and visibility was limited as he descended deeper, desperately searching for Anna and silently praying he wasn't too late. Suddenly, a flash of light pierced the darkness above him, causing Andrew to halt and squint towards the blinding illumination. Jake and Aidan swiftly swim to his side, equipping him with headgear fitted with a flashlight and an oxygen mask. Andrew expressed his gratitude with a thumbs up before they continued their descent. As they ventured deeper, their beams of light revealed Anna's lifeless form, floating eerily like a lost nymph. Aidan and Jake grabbed her by the forearm, and Andrew quickly secured an oxygen mask over her face. Together, they began the painstaking ascent back to the surface, each stroke filled with urgency and hope. Upon getting Anna above the water's surface, a collective sigh of relief filled the air. Andrew, Jake, and Aidan decided to take her to the yacht instead of the larger ship, and then they saw that Charles was already waiting in a smaller boat with Anita. As soon as the men hoisted Anna aboard the smaller boat, Anita deftly checked for a pulse. When she removed Anna's mask and began performing CPR, Arya immediately knew that Anna was unresponsive, not breathing, and had no pulse. "God, please," she whispered a prayer. Nathaniel immediately enveloped her in a comforting hug. Before Anita joined the rescue efforts, Tom Hill had carried Liam, holding him with his face turned away. Tom stood alongside Nathaniel. Bella nestled against his side, while Miss Everly stood nearby, her hands clasped in prayer. They all watched with anxious eyes and faces etched with apprehension. Ethan looked on at Alex, catching Nathaniel's gaze as well. The two exchanged a worried look before refocusing on their friend, who stood by the guardrail like a statue, fists clenched at his sides, his eyes fixed on the unfolding scene on the water. "Go to him, Ethan," Nathaniel mouthed. Ethan nodded and shouted, "Make way!" Heads turned in his direction as he began to forge a pathway through the crowd. The CPR continued for several more seconds without any signs of success or life returning to Anna. Nathaniel's arm tightened around Arya's chest as she began to cry softly, and he watched as Jake boarded the boat and positioned Anna's body against his chest, wrapping his arm around her stomach, just below her breasts. With 3 quick and hard compressions, Anna suddenly gasped and began coughing, expelling water. Anita quickly wrapped a thick towel around her, holding her securely in a hug. A loud, collective sigh of relief filled the air. Nathaniel held on to Arya as she trembled with relief. His gaze shifted to Alex, who was hyperventilating and starting to sink to the floor. Ethan, finally getting through, rushed to his friend's back and caught him before he fell. "Hey, I've got you," Ethan said in a soothing tone as Alex shook with tears. "She made it," Alex rasped with relief. "Of course she did. She's a freaking witch, remember?" Ethan quipped. Alex started to laugh and cried at the same time. Ethan wiped away a stray tear, and the two shared a quick, tight hug. Pulling apart, Ethan gave Alex a friendly pat on the back before gently turning his head to look in Nathaniel's direction. Alex fought back fresh tears as Nathaniel nodded comfortingly towards him. "She made it, Nate," Alex exclaimed with emotion. "I never doubted she would for a minute," Nathaniel shouted back, tears streaming down his face. Alex nodded, his expression crumbling with fresh tears. Jake turned towards Alex and gave him a thumbs up. Alex nodded gratefully. Jake then lifted Anna, and as they maneuvered to get her on board the yacht, Alex and Ethan hurried down the deck of the larger ship to join them on the yacht. Arya stood anxiously beside Nathaniel as Anna was brought on board. When Arya's gaze met Anna's, she noticed Anna's trembling lips, red eyes, and intense shaking. Arya quickly reached for Anna's hand, squeezing it tightly, and hurried alongside Jake as he carried Anna inside the yacht and to the cabin she shared with Alex. Jake gently laid her on the bed, leaving her in the capable hands of Dr. Hawthorne and Anita, before stepping out to head to his own cabin to change into dry clothes. Inside the cabin, Anita and Arya moved quickly to remove Anna from her wet dress, handling her gently to avoid further shock. They helped her change into her pajamas before wrapping her in warm blankets and towels to retain body heat, adjusting the cabin temperature to a more comfortable level. A maid brought in a hot cup of tea, for which Arya silently thanked Miss Jonas for her thoughtfulness. Anita encouraged Anna to sip it slowly to raise her core temperature. Arya closely monitored Anna's vital signs, checking her pulse and breathing to ensure she remained stable. The two stayed by Anna's side, offering emotional support and reassurance. "We're here for you, bestie," Arya murmured softly, gently brushing a damp strand of hair from Anna's forehead. As Anna started to shake with tears, both Arya and Anita wrapped her in a tight hug. "You're safe now," Anita murmured reassuringly. Alex entered the cabin with Ethan and Nathaniel, accompanied by Liam and Owen. "Auntie Anna?" Owen called out, catching her attention. "Are you okay?" Liam asked in a shaky voice. "I'm fine, thank you," she said hoarsely. Her lips trembled as she tried to force a smile, glancing from the little boys to Ethan, Nathaniel, and then Alex. Tears welled up on her face when she saw Alex's bloodshot eyes. Ethan lifted Owen and Liam onto Anna's lap, and they hugged her tightly. Ethan and Nathaniel joined in, enveloping her in a group hug. "If you think drowning is going to save you from my wrath for what you got me into at that auction, you've got another thing coming," Ethan quipped, eliciting a giggle from Anna. She pressed kisses on Liam and Owen's foreheads before Anita and Nathaniel gently led the boys off the bed. They all left, leaving Anna and Alex alone for privacy. Alex climbed into bed with Anna, pulling her into his arms and holding her tightly in a loving embrace. He whispered, "Don't ever scare me like that again." Anna nodded against his chest, her voice low and gruff as she muttered, "Jessica pushed me." "I know." Alex replied firmly. "She won't get away with it, I swear it to you," he assured her. As Nathaniel, along with Arya, their boys, Anita and Ethan, stepped back above deck, he noticed their colleagues on the other ship still waiting by the guardrails, their anxious gazes revealing their concern for Anna's well-being. Sharing a knowing glance with Ethan, Nathaniel stepped forward, drawing everyone's attention. "Quite an eventful weekend, huh?" he quipped, eliciting low chuckles across the decks. "We all know Anna. She's as resilient as a cactus," he added, prompting louder laughter. "She scared the bejesus out of all of us. I, for one, won't forget this in a hurry. If this reunion has taught me one thing, it's to run off at the very mention of a reunion with all you psychos." The school president's burst of laughter rang above the others. "See you all never," he added, making people laugh even more. "I want you all to know that Anna is going to be fine." Even Jessica's witchy burst wouldn't dim her light. "We all know Anna, and the last thing she would want is for us to waste her efforts tonight. So, the night is young. Let's try to still have a little fun," Nathaniel concluded, making people chuckle. "Can we get our dates back?" A female voice rang across the deck. "Please, please don't say yes," Ethan murmured through gritted teeth, making Arya giggle. Nathaniel beamed at him with mischievous intent. "Why not?" he called out in response to the lady. "As a matter of fact, Ethan just reminded me that we are honor-bound," Nathaniel added. "God help me, Nathaniel Hawthorne. I will push you overboard and jump in with you. As a matter of fact, I will stab myself in the left eye," Ethan said through gritted teeth. Nathaniel tried to hold back a laugh, but Anita, Arya, Liam, and Owen didn't bother. Ignoring Ethan, Nathaniel continued to address the crowd, wanting to ease the tension and get them to relax for the night. "Silly Uncle Ethan, you can't really stab yourself in the eye," Owen said, giggling. He found the very notion absurd. "Why the left eye in particular, though?" Liam joined in. "It can't be that bad," he chimed in, giggling with glee. Ethan lowered to their face level and said with mock seriousness, "You want to trade spots with me then?" making the two laugh harder. "We are babies, Uncle Ethan," Owen replied. "Mom is going to have our hide if we try to date at our age," Liam added. Ethan held back a laugh. "Good thinking on her part." "Some of those ladies are downright scary, I tell you," Ethan replied. The boys grinned at him. "I know what you mean. One time a girl tried to kiss Owen at school, and recently another tried to get in a stream with me without clothes on. Yucky," Liam said in a conspiratorial whisper, his face etched in disgust. "Really? My men," Ethan praised, offering Liam and then Owen a fist bump. Liam furrowed his brows. "That's not a good thing, Uncle Ethan," he said. "Do you know how many germs can be passed with kisses?" Owen added, bemused. It's gross. Mum and Dad do it all the time, but I know for sure that Mum is super serious about hygiene. Think about it, cold germs, flu germs, and even strep throat germs. Owen explained with earnest seriousness. Wait till you're 16 and we'll have this discussion again. I bet you two will think otherwise. Ethan winked. I doubt it. Girls are strange beings, except for our mum, of course, and Aunt Anita and Big Mama and Grandma Bella. Owen chimed in. I get the picture, Owen. And just as I said, let's have this discussion in 10 years, he offered a handshake. The two gingerly shook his hand with a suspicious glint in their eyes. I'll have you know I'm becoming quite an expert in gentlemen's agreements. I will be waiting to collect on this agreement, Liam said with devilish relish. You should listen to him, Mr. Blackwood. I just lost $100 to this little gentleman, Andrew said from behind the boys, making the three turn their attention to him. Liam beamed with smiles as he took out the $100 bill he got from his Uncle Andrew earlier and sniffed it with triumphant glee. You extorted money from Andrew, Liam? Way to go, kid, Ethan praised. Please do not encourage him, Andrew admonished in mock seriousness. Don't hate the player, Uncle Andrew, Liam replied. I'm lost. What's happening? Owen asked, bemused, wondering what Liam had done now. Liam placed the $100 bill under his nose, making the furrowed groove between Owen's eyebrows deepen. Smell that? Liam inquired. Ethan couldn't help laughing. Smell what? The scent of a new note? Owen asked gingerly. No, brother, it's the smell of success, Liam gushed. Jake, who had joined the group, shook with laughter. Meanwhile, Nathaniel was still addressing the crowd and said, whatever we do, please let's refrain from the temptation of going for a swim, making laughter ring out. Tom Hill, Bella, and Miss Everly joined the group and pulled Aria aside. How is she really, Aria? Miss Everly asked with concern. She's fine, Auntie, I promise. Alex is with her, helping to calm her down. That was terrifying, Aria replied. Miss Everly sighed in relief. Indeed, Tom Hill remarked. It's fortunate we have experts on board. Poor thing, Bella interjected. What are they going to do with the blonde girl, Miss Everly asked, her seasoned voice tinged with anger. They can't let her get away with it, or she'll think it's okay to act that way. My God, she added, her emotions obvious. She will face the full extent of the law for pushing Miss Anna overboard. Rest assured, there will be significant consequences, Miss Everly, Tom Hill assured. Earlier on, Noria stood hidden in the shadowy area of the deck, unaware that Aidan had seen her as he returned on board. Jordan had informed him that she had bravely spoken up as a witness against Jessica, which shocked and impressed him. She was supposed to be resting and recovering, and he hadn't expected to find her on deck. He wondered if she had also witnessed the auction. Heading into the cabin, especially now that he knew she wasn't there, he took the opportunity to quickly take a hot shower before changing into a hooded jacket over denim pants. As he was about to leave the cabin, the door opened and she gingerly walked inside. Hey, Aidan greeted her with a warm smile. She wore a jacket over a sundress with thin stripes, and the shape of the bodice indicated she wasn't wearing anything underneath. Aidan raised his eyes to meet her gaze, struck by her piercing blue eyes. Dr. Hawthorne must have worked some magic, he thought, because she looked presentable already. Perhaps it was the dress or her hair let loose, framing her pretty face. Hey, she responded shyly. It seems you're in the business of saving girls, she said with a shy smile, attempting humor. Aidan chuckled and shrugged. I suppose you could say that. I'm in the business of protecting lives, he replied. She nodded. I heard Miss Anna is fine, Noria said. Aidan nodded. She's lucky, Aidan responded. I also heard you stood as a witness and identified that witch Jessica as the one responsible for Miss Anna's plight. Noria lowered her gaze. Yeah, I saw her bidding for you earlier though, she said in a voice barely above a whisper. Sounds like you know her well. Aidan cocked his eyebrows in amusement. Weren't you supposed to be resting? He remarked. I rested. Dr. Hawthorne gave me an injection to help me sleep and eat, she quickly responded. I noticed you didn't come back, and I was curious is all, she explained. Aidan responded. You should give your body time to recover, he advised. She eagerly nodded. As Aidan made to leave, Noria's question halted his strides. Are you going for the date? When Aidan turned around to look at her, she lowered her gaze and added, I heard the man they call the boss say your party is still on. she quickly explained. Yes, Noria, I suppose it would have to be. They paid a whole lot of money, Aidan responded, his voice tinged with patience and amusement. Yeah, she said, shrugging and fidgeting with her fingers. Aidan studied her for about a minute before shutting the cabin door and stepping in front of her, placing a hand under her chin to make her look into his eyes. Do you want to tell me what's going on with you? He asked. She gave him a searching gaze before shaking her head slightly. Nothing, she replied in her unique voice. Are you sure? He pressed. She nodded again. Aidan lowered his hand from her face and headed back to the door. Do you like her? She suddenly said, then gasped as if realizing what she had just said. Aidan slowly turned to face her, only to see her covering her face with her hands. Aidan chuckled to himself. It's not that kind of date, Noria, he assured her, though he wasn't entirely sure himself. When she sighed with relief, he chuckled to himself. Despite finding her reactions amusing, Aidan couldn't help feeling a tad worried, hoping she hadn't started forming any kind of attachment to him out of pure gratitude for his help. He sincerely hoped it wasn't that. Remembering her father, he asked, If you find you're free of your father, where would you like to go, and what would you like to do? He watched as she lowered her hands, looking at him with a glimmer of hope in her eyes. I would get a job and go back to school, she replied. Where? He probed further. One of the maids mentioned you're all heading to New York. Can I come and work for Dr. Hawthorne? She inquired. Aidan's brows furrowed in concern. I'm sorry, working for Dr. Hawthorne with your background wouldn't be feasible, he said honestly, immediately regretting telling the truth as he saw the glimmer fade from her eyes into despondency. But there are plenty of other job opportunities out there, he quickly added. Yeah, I suppose, she replied in a subdued tone. Hey, Noria, Aidan called gently, making her look at him. One step at a time, okay? First focus on getting your strength back, then we can discuss the way forward, he reassured her. She nodded hesitantly. Aidan held her gaze for a moment longer before leaving. However, when he, Jake, Charles, and the rest of the men returned to their dinner dates, Aidan quickly realized he might have been wrong about his assumption of what the date entailed. It's been quite a night, huh? Christine said to Jake as he took a sip of his drink, meeting her gaze and trying to ignore how her foot was gently stroking his stocking-covered ankle under the table. I hope she's the last alumna with demonic tendencies, Jake quipped. Christine scoffed. What can I say? Some people came to this reunion to settle scores. You, for one, should know, she added. Jake furrowed his brows with interest. I don't understand, he said in a slow drawl. You're telling me you don't remember me, she replied, leaning forward to scrutinize him closely. I'm not sure, Jake replied, trying to search his head for any recollection of the dark-haired girl. He knew she couldn't have been one of Nathaniel Hawthorne's lovers because she didn't look as attractive as most of the women, and she had dark hair. Yes, Dr. Hawthorne also had dark hair, but she was a literal goddess. Nathaniel Hawthorne never had a choice but to make her an exception. She was exceptionally beautiful and smart to boot. It was a no-brainer that he ended up marrying her. Christine let out a sigh and opened her purse, retrieving a pair of glasses which she put on. Then she beamed at him, running her hand through her hair to let it loose. Jake's brows furrowed with acute interest as he observed her. Suddenly, he recalled a drunken sleepover party where Nathaniel had insisted they all take time off work to join in, and he had ended up drunk and in a closet with a geeky girl who bore a strong resemblance to the woman sitting across from him now. Holy, he muttered. I'm wearing contact lenses. She grinned, removed her glasses and tucked them back into her purse, then glanced around as if checking that no one was paying them any attention. Without warning, she went under the table, and the next thing Jake felt was his fly being unzipped. Miss Christine, about that time. Back at Harvard, I was intoxicated, and... He started, his voice trailing off as he looked around, frantically hoping no one would notice them, especially that his date was under the table. You didn't give me a chance to finish my fantasy, so now this is my unfinished business, she said from under the table. Lord help me, Jake groaned inwardly, realizing there was no stopping her now. Come on, he thought to himself, stifling a laugh when he saw Aidan being led away from the banquet hall, also looking around as if seeking help. Jake took a sharp intake of breath as Christine reached her mark. "Oh boy," he gasped, leaning back in his chair, knowing there was no point protesting now. Meanwhile, Aidan was led into a dimly lit room. He began to speak, but the lady turned and locked the door. She then faced him, pulling him to sit on the chest drawer at the foot of the bed. "Ma'am, it doesn't seem like you needed a bodyguard to safely get to your cabin." His voice trailed off as she pressed a finger to his lips, silencing him. Leaning in close and locking eyes with him, she whispered, "Please don't tell me you're a scaredy cat." With that, she drew back, turned on some music, and began a seductive striptease. Aidan let out a sigh and ran his hand over his face. He thought he saw a movement to his left and slowly lowered his gaze, pretending not to notice, shielding his face a bit and darting his gaze sideways. He dimmed his eyes and thought he glimpsed a pair of stiletto heels of someone lurking behind the curtains. Getting up, he walked over to his date. She turned her back to him and moved provocatively, rubbing her backside against him. Aidan sighed in resignation as he felt his body react. He held her by the hip in an encouraging manner, moving with her as he wrapped one arm around her waist and used the other to support her hip, allowing her to continue grinding against him. Aidan buried his face in the curve of her neck, kissing from the base of her neck to her jawline, gently sucking on her earlobe. His free hand slipped under her dress, tracing lightly between her thighs. "Do you have protection?" he murmured. Though he was in control of the situation, the sexual tension between them was undeniable. "Yes, I have some in the restroom," she whispered breathlessly. Aidan continued to nibble on her earlobe, making her breathe heavily through parted lips. "Could you go get it? But wait for me to join you there." "I'd like to shower with you first. Is that okay?" Aidan whispered. "Yes," she replied between soft moans. "That's my good girl," he growled in a deep, husky drawl, tilting her head sideways to kiss her before letting her go. She hurried across the cabin and into the restroom. Aidan removed his boots and loosened his trousers, strolling leisurely towards the curtains in the shadowy corner. As he approached, the curtain was suddenly pulled back slightly, revealing a tall woman with dramatic makeup, holding out a gun. Aidan quickly drew his own gun, and the two stood facing each other, both armed with magnums. "I hope you're quick on the draw," Aidan quipped. "Wanna find out?" she replied, her voice low and soft. "Who are you and what do you want?" Aidan demanded, his voice icy and commanding. Aidan studied the lady carefully, noting the 5-digit number tattooed on the inside of her wrist, the badly askew full fringe hair, and the overly dark makeup. He knew she was either an ex-military officer or involved in some organized crime syndicate where they branded their members. He darted a quick glance at the last two characters and saw that the last one wasn't a number but a letter. Aidan caught her glancing over his shoulder in her feeble attempt to distract him, and Aidan didn't even bother to pretend like he was caught in her amateur game. "You are a tough one, aren't you?" she said. Aidan shrugged, his gaze unwavering. "I joined the Navy at 18. There's something about belonging to the government and having the license to kill. That gives you a sense of invincibility. I was also an orphan, so it was easy not to care about anyone but my own survival," Aidan replied as he kicked off his trousers and started to unbutton his shirt. "What are you doing?" she asked, and Aidan didn't miss the note of incredulity in her voice. "I was kind of in the middle of something. Maybe if you make this quick, we won't have to ruin the night for everyone. By everyone, I mean me and the pretty lady there are waiting to be serviced," he replied. "I thought that was a ploy," she said gingerly, as if she couldn't believe she had read the situation wrong. "You thought wrong," he replied. Aidan waited for her to fall into the temptation of lowering her gaze to his groin, and just like that, she did. He reacted, and in a flash he deftly lunged forward, startling her, but before she could act, he struck her wrist, grabbed her gun, rolled behind her as he shoved her forward with his knee and kicked the back of her legs to reduce her to her knees. He then pointed her gun and his at her forehead without breaking a sweat. The lady's labored breathing resounded in the air. "You Marines are always cocky bastards," she said in a breathless tone, her attempt at humor sounding dry. "Well, what can I say? If you can survive the training without being scarred for life, I think that alone earns you bragging rights." But let's not digress, Aiden said, and pointed the barrel of the guns tightly to her temple, making her grunt in pain. Introduction first. I feel like you know me way more than I know you. Go on, Camorra. Name and mission, please. You have 5 seconds. His voice sounded like a warning. The lady chuckled, the humorless kind. I'm just a messenger. Let's try not to break the tradition now, she quipped. If I were you, I'd start talking. How did you manage to get on this ship? Aiden demanded. 3 guardian angels saved me from being caught as a stowaway. Figured the guy must have been pretty awful to meet his end like that, so I saved myself the trouble of explaining my presence on his boat and let him become fish food. You know, seizing opportunities and all, she quipped. Aiden immediately grasped her meaning. She had hidden in Cooper's fishing boat to follow them. He wondered how long she had been trailing them, and the thought angered him that they hadn't discovered her sooner. Enough with your gibberish, he retorted, pretending not to understand what she was referring to. Perhaps you didn't get the full memo. I'm the impatient one. I'm certain this was pure bad luck. And you meant to crash in on another Hawthorne bodyguard, he retorted. You are no fun, she replied. Aiden cocked the 2 guns, pressing it even harder against her skin. A low, pain-filled growl emitted from her. Fine. My boss has reliable information that Grand Camorra plans to seek medical help from your bosses. He wants me to warn your boss not to provide help, or his family members will start disappearing one by one, she delivered through gritted teeth. Aiden chuckled. Is your boss by any chance Henri Cavalier, he probed. I'm not at liberty to tell, she snapped. Aiden responded, thinking the bastard had gotten out of the hospital he was dumped much faster than expected, and hoped Dr. Hawthorne's doctor friend was all right. Okay, he must really hate you to let you be the one to deliver that message, especially to me, Aiden added. Why? The lady inquired hesitantly. It takes a lot of guts to come to deliver such a message to the Hawthornes, Aiden replied. Oh yeah? You should know that if I don't go back, you and all your jolly cultist friends are as good as dead, starting with Julia Davies's lover, she replied with feigned bravado. Aiden chuckled, leaning close to the back of her head. He whispered, Oh, you will be going back? How else would we possibly make our response crystal clear? Before the lady could act, Aiden hit her hard on the back of her head with the butt of the gun, making her slump. He then dragged her towards the exit. I hope you haven't forgotten me? Aiden's date called out from the bathroom. No, just taking off my clothes. Give me a sec, I'll be right there. Aiden replied as he opened the door, still in his shirt and boxers, and continued to drag the Camorra messenger out of the cabin and to the ship's storage room that was 2 doors away. Quickly finding a rope, he tied her ankles and wrists together behind her back before locking her in and returning to the cabin. He made to head to the bathroom, then stopped and hurried around to check behind the curtains before rushing towards the bathroom door. His date opened the door to peer out and bit her lower lip when she saw he was indeed half naked. So where were we? Aiden rasped. The girl giggled. Meanwhile, back at the banquet hall, the party was beginning to turn a tad wild. People paired up to dance to slow music. Some had consumed too much alcohol and had passed out in their seats, while others were making out or playing drunken games. Jake's date emerged from under the table, her face adorned with a wide, satisfied grin, after bringing his body to a state of pliant release. Want to take this to my cabin? Christine invited. Right now? Jake asked, feeling like he would very much prefer to crawl into a soft, feathery bed and slip into a dreamless sleep. Yes, right now, Jake, she said, reaching for his wrist. She giggled when her fingers didn't quite encircle it. Come on, she added a tad shyly. Jake thought, why not? And got up, letting her lead him across the hall to the lower deck. With a gentle, pandering smile, he followed her to the entrance of her cabin. However, just as Christine unlocked the door with a key card and entered, another door down the hallway opened and Jake blinked as he saw Aiden stroll out. Christine pulled him inside. Despite Aiden calling out to him, Jake wasn't sure if Christine had heard or was simply ignoring the interruption. Looks like my friend needs my attention, Jake began. But Christine swiftly slipped out of her dress, standing before him with nothing on, giving him a pointed look as she strolled toward the bed, as if showing him what he would miss if he chose to leave. A knock sounded at the door. Jake almost growled at the choice he was being forced to make. He tried to ignore Aiden and took a step toward the bed, but the knock grew insistent. 1 sec, Jake muttered, holding up one finger as if seeking permission. Jake, come on, Christine whined. 1 second, I promise. This won't take long, he quickly replied, unlocking the door and peering out to glare at Aiden. You're killing my buzz right now, man, Jake gritted through his teeth. I know, sorry. But I think you might want to see this, Aiden replied. Really? Right now? Jake inquired in exasperation. Yes, right now, Aiden said firmly. Jake, Christine called, her voice tinged with impatience. 1 minute, please, he replied, stepping outside and shutting the door. This had better be good, he warned Aiden. You'll see, was Aiden's reply. When Aiden stopped in front of the storeroom in the hallway, Jake let out a sigh. Running his fingers through his hair, he said, Please don't tell me we have another alumni who's gone mental. I really need to sleep. His voice was deep and gruff. Nope. Way worse, Aiden replied and pulled the door open. Jake blinked when he saw a female hog-tied on the storeroom floor. He paused, glanced left and right down the hallway before entering. Crouching down, his eyes settled on the number tattooed on the lady's wrist. Jake didn't take as long as Aiden to figure it out. He sighed heavily. Henri Cavalier got away, he inquired in a tense tone. Yes, Aiden replied, and his messenger was able to trail us as a stowaway on Cooper's boat. She brought a message for the boss, Aiden explained. Tell me, Jake requested. A minute later, with both flanking the lady, they held her by the forearm and managed to return her to the top deck without being seen. Back on deck, Jake blew 2 whistles that sounded like mockingbirds. It didn't take long before Jordan appeared on the yacht's deck, followed by Will, then Lewis, and lastly, Andrew. Seeing Jake and Aiden holding up a female he had never seen before, Andrew instructed that they be brought back onto the yacht. Minutes later, the lady was settled on a chair on the upper deck, tied and gagged. Andrew went to find Nathaniel. Earlier on, after Nathaniel finished addressing the crowd and Ethan left to join his date, Big Mama ushered Owen and Liam away. Nathaniel and Aria left Anita with Andrew, and Tom Hill took Bella by the hand, excusing themselves. Nathaniel and Aria returned to check on Anna and Alex, finding their cabin door locked. They retired to their own cabin, hands interlocked. The two shared a warm bath before slipping under the covers. Nathaniel held Aria close, noticing how she snuggled against his body, prompting him to wrap her in a tight embrace. He pressed a kiss on the nape of her neck. A few more hours and we can finally have a peaceful day, I promise, he whispered, peppering kisses against her skin. It's been one hell of a weekend, huh? She quipped, craning her neck to look into his face, and they burst out laughing. Really, Nathan? See you all never, Aria teased, reminding him of his unscripted speech earlier. I am never subjecting you to this ever again. I can't believe I brought everyone. Jesus, he chuckled, his voice filled with laughter. I've got to say I was justified in being scared that first time. Now you get a front row seat to see just how crazy your ex-lovers are. Thank God Anna is all right, she joked, sighing with relief. Come on, in my defense, it was more about the physical than character, he replied sheepishly, thinking back on it and covering his face with his hands as he laid back on the bed, shaking with laughter. That should teach you, Aria teased. Oh, don't worry, I'm quite grounded now, and happy and content, he murmured, his voice growing tender, mirrored by the gleam in his eyes. Aria traced his left eyebrow with a finger before pressing a kiss on his lips. He reached out to cup the back of her head, cradling it as he deepened the kiss, prompting her to rise up and straddle him. Much later, just as they were drifting off to sleep, their limbs entwined in a loving embrace, Nathaniel heard an abrupt knock on the cabin door. His eyelids flicked open, ears pricked as he waited for a second knock. When it didn't come, he knew it was Andrew. Gently disengaging himself from Aria, he pressed a kiss on the back of her shoulder before getting out of bed to find something to throw on. He grabbed a thick robe, wearing it over his pajamas, and went to answer the door. Andrew was leaning against the doorframe. I'm sorry, boss, but this can't wait, Andrew said. Nathaniel sighed, stepped out, and locked the door behind him. Another alumni? He asked. No, boss, I'm afraid not, Andrew replied. Nathaniel turned to face him, meeting his gaze. Camorra? Nathaniel inquired. Yes, boss. It appears Sean Cavalier was correct. His grandfather is in danger and reportedly facing health issues, Andrew explained. I see. So then Sean is being predictable? Nathaniel asked cautiously, scrutinizing Andrew closely. He sent a messenger to us. She's on board the ship, Andrew replied. On this ship? Nathaniel asked incredulously. His body grew tense. Yes, boss, Andrew confirmed. How did she manage that? Nathaniel questioned, as they resumed walking down the hallway and up the stairs to the top deck. Andrew hesitated, unsure how to respond without starting from the beginning, and letting Nathaniel know about Cooper, Noria's father. Nathaniel gave Andrew a sidelong glance, arching an eyebrow at him. They were already above deck, and Nathaniel could see his men up ahead, standing like a human shield in front of a female tied to a chair. The men were shrouded in darkness, using it as a veil to conceal their identities. Perhaps we should get to the nitty-gritty later, Andrew finally said. Nathaniel responded. As he got closer to the spot where the lady was tied, his men made way for him. Nathaniel stood about 7 feet away from the female. Aidan pulled out the rag used to gag the lady. She glared at him, working her jaw before directing her gaze at Nathaniel. Ah, the Top Gun. You shouldn't have, she quipped. All she got was a silent, chilling stare. What am I looking at? Nathaniel inquired in a non-committal tone. A Camorra messenger. She says she has a message for us, Aidan replied. Nathaniel reverted his gaze from Aidan to the lady, his expression quizzical. If I were you, I would speak up real fast, Jake advised. The lady looked from him to Nathaniel and must have noted the cold, unwavering stare. She swallowed hard, then clenched her jaw before saying, Samuel Cavalier is dying, and my boss has it on good authority that he is planning to seek your help and, by extension, your wife's. The message is for you to back off or your family will pay, she delivered. A tense silence ensued. Nathaniel glanced at Andrew and said, Are you with your satellite phone? His voice was as cold as the very night. Andrew responded by stepping forward to hand over the satellite phone to Nathaniel. Nathaniel dialed Naples Samuel Cavalier's direct line. It rang 3 times before the old man's seasoned voice resounded on the line. Are you psychic now? The old man quipped weakly. Nathaniel chuckled. I'm sorry to disturb you, Uncle, and that I haven't called to give my condolences for the deaths of Dominic and Travis. I came for a fundraising reunion in Hawaii, and you would not believe the tale I have for the effort, Nathaniel said into the phone. How are you doing? He added with genuine concern. Samuel Cavalier scoffed. Thank you for being civil about it, even though we both know Dominic wasn't worth it. But what can I say? It's never easy losing a son and a grandson, especially when you still have a tiny piece of hope that they might be redeemed, he replied with a note of regret. I wish you the strength to bear the loss, Uncle, Nathaniel remarked. The older man replied, then added, Are you still on your vacation? He inquired. Yes, Uncle. I'm on my way to Manitoba as we speak, he responded. Actually, I called for a pressing matter, Nathaniel added. I have one of Henri's private hands here. She said something about you needing my help, and my wife's, Nathaniel remarked, watching as the girl grew pale as a sheet. A messenger from Henri? Samuel repeated, almost growling. Nathaniel then heard him calling out to his daughter, Anne Cavalier. He waited, listening as a door opened and closed at the other end of the line. Then a feminine voice sounded from the background. Non avevamo acconsentito che le mie cartelle cliniche avessero rimanere private. E che nessuno sapesse di o mio viaggio previsto da Nathaniel Hawthorne. Didn't we agree to keep my medical records private? And for no one to find out about my intended visit to Nathaniel Hawthorne? How come he already knows about my condition and that I am planning to visit him in New York? Samuel Cavalier yelled in Neapolitan dialect. What? That can't be right, replied someone who clearly sounded like Anne Cavalier, also in Neapolitan dialect. The voices filtering through the phone line, a heated argument in Neapolitan dialect went back and forth for about 2 minutes before the female voice spoke into the phone. Well, hello, Nate. This is not quite how I'd imagined speaking to you again, but still, it must suffice. My father seems to think we have a mole in our home. Would you like to show us who this mole is? Anne said. Hello to you too, Anne. But of course, and I will do you one better. I will have her brought to you directly, Nathaniel replied. Anne Cavalier chuckled. Creative as always, but the message is correct. We've heard about your wife's expertise, and would like her to help us with a very complicated medical case, she responded, a hint of emotion lining her voice at the mention of her father's illness. Let me know when to expect you so we can prepare. I hope this line is secure, Nathaniel replied. Pensavo, DC, I used to think so. Samuel Cavalier yelled in Neapolitan dialect and then went into a fit of coughing. Calmati, Papa, please. I will get to the bottom of this, Anne cautioned with a hint of emotion, then spoke again into the phone, responding to Nathaniel's inquiry. The phone is secure, Nate, Anne Cavalier replied. I must go. We will call you soon, she said and ended the call. Please don't send me to her, the messenger pleaded, sounding genuinely terrified. Nathaniel took a few steps toward her and stopped again when he was 3 feet away, bending down to her face level. He said, Henri Cavalier must not have gotten the message the last time we saw each other. Threaten me, and he might still get a chance to live to see tomorrow. Threaten my family, and he will not get to see the next hour. I'm sorry you're going to be caught up in this, but you came to deliver the wrong message to the wrong man. I will burn the fucking world for my family. I think it's time Henri learned just what exactly I mean when I say that, Nathaniel said. Please don't take me to Anne Cavalier. I would rather you shot me right now, she cried out. Nathaniel straightened up and gave Andrew a sidelong glance. You know what to do, he said and turned to walk away. Please, I will do anything, she yelled after Nathaniel. He paused his stride and turned around to face the lady. Where is Henri Cavalier? Nathaniel inquired. The lady must have understood Nathaniel's inquiry and what it signified. She tried to hide how terrified she was and the impossible position she'd been thrust into. Your life for his, Nathaniel said in case she hadn't yet comprehended what his inquiry meant. When she didn't immediately reply, Nathaniel turned away but took only 2 steps before the lady said, A warehouse in downtown Brooklyn, her voice tinged with defeat. Nathaniel retraced his steps back to the lady, lowering his gaze to her level and said, You are going to be my guest for a bit while you tell us exactly where your boss is. After my men pay him a courtesy visit and get back, I will ask them to let you walk away unscathed. Double-cross me, and Anne Cavalier will not only find out you are Henri Cavalier's mole, but I will also take pleasure in letting Samuel Cavalier know at the same time that you are the same mole who fed Henri information that got Dominic and Travis killed and made it possible for Sean to make Samuel Cavalier sick. Nathaniel delivered, watching as the lady's lips quivered with evident terror. So what do you say? The lady nodded jerkily. You've got to speak up, Aidan taunted. She swallowed hard and said, I agree, her voice trembling and hoarse. Nathaniel responded, giving Andrew a sidelong glance before starting to walk away. Aidan, secure her, Andrew directed, then turned to Jake. A word? Jake nodded in acknowledgement. Aidan sprang into action with Jordan joining him. Aidan pulled the lady up and whispered close to her ear. Man, is it your lucky day or what? He teased. Like I can trust him to honor his words. I'm nobody to him. The lady spat, bitterness lining her voice. Damn, just when I was starting to think you're smart, you went and opened your mouth, Jordan replied. Aidan chuckled as he pushed the lady forward, making her stagger ahead of them, visibly annoyed. Meanwhile, as soon as they got below deck with Jake and Andrew flanking Nathaniel, he said, Have Anton send in 2 crafts to get us. I did promise my family a few hours of peace, and by God I will honor my word, Nathaniel said in frustrated annoyance. Yes, boss, Andrew replied with a resigned sigh. Now care to tell me how that lady made it this far? He inquired, glancing from Jake to Andrew. Andrew glanced at Jake, silently urging him to respond, and as if on cue, he began, Remember the girl we rescued from the pirates, boss? Nathaniel furrowed his brow in concentration and nodded, asking with curiosity, What does this have to do with her? Andrew continued the narrative, informing him about Noria's father, Cooper, omitting the details of the vigilante justice they enacted upon him. Nathaniel knew Jake wouldn't let him off easy upon hearing the man was a pedophile. Realizing that the Camorra lady had used Cooper to reach them bothered him. I understand we want to help this girl, but she's clearly a security risk. The combination of her and her father could compromise our defense, and that's a big no for me, Nathaniel said. Let's think of how to help her and then set her loose. And please do it before Anton gets here, he directed. Andrew and Jake nodded. Yes, boss, they chorused. I'll speak with the school president in the morning regarding the change of plans. They'll have to manage without us for the remaining few hours, Nathaniel stated, pausing his strides. Andrew and Jake stopped as well, and Nathaniel took a step forward, turning to face them. It's clear Samuel Cavalier doesn't know about Henry's treachery. As Samuel said, the death of a son is never easy, even one like Dominic. We can't end Henry's miserable life, but I spared him once for his father. Now we're going to tame him for his father, Nathaniel declared. Choose your men, locate him, and take him to the captain's yard. They should be able to keep him contained until we're done helping his father. Then we'll inform his father of what his son has done and let him and Anne deal with the matter. Whatever we do, let's not give him the opportunity to think he has the power to threaten my family ever again. This ends now, Nathaniel ordered in a low, forceful tone before turning and striding away. Jake and Andrew waited until Nathaniel had entered his cabin before turning back towards the top deck. I want to be part of the team that takes that bastard to the yard, Jake said under his breath. The yard is a prison created for ex-military personnel who had, at one time or another, suffered some kind of mental breakdown which led them to use their training to create mayhem. Taking Henri Cavalier to such an establishment would be quite triumphant, and Jake wanted to see him locked up there, knowing any wrong word or action would have his neck broken, taking the cocky bastard down a notch. I need you with me, Jake, Andrew replied. You were picked to come with us for a good reason. Jake threw him a glare. You don't think I know that, he retorted. Henri Cavalier is not that big of a threat. The Hawthorne guards back in New York can handle him. I need you with me to make sure the boss gets back home with his family in one piece. Andrew replied in a firm, no-nonsense tone. He sent his messenger to tell the boss he would kill me first. Clearly this guy has some kind of vendetta against me. Or maybe he still wants my head for Julia, and I do want to give him a chance to face me again, Jake retorted. He is wounded, Jake. Are you planning to combat a man already subdued with gunshot wounds? Andrew replied, trying to reason with him, knowing it was Jake's anger getting the best of him. I'm going to have my time with that bastard, mark my words, Jake retorted in clear exasperation before walking away. Andrew watched as he headed to the side of the yacht where the smaller boats were, knowing he intended to spend the night with his date. He figured it was a good thing. Perhaps the lady would help take his mind off the Camorra, and especially Sean Cavalier's wife. Aidan, having secured the Camorra messenger, came to stand beside Andrew. What's his problem? He asked, also watching Jake get down from the yacht. He is just pissed Henri Cavalier pinpointed him as the first to die, Andrew replied. Aidan chuckled. Andrew then faced him and added, What's the plan for Noria, Aidan? Aidan gave the older man a keen scrutiny, his body growing tense with apprehension. What's the boss's take? Aidan probed, deflecting. Andrew arched an eyebrow at him, knowing exactly what he was doing, but answered him anyway. He wants us to find a way to help her and let her go. So I'm asking you, do you have an idea of how we can help her? Andrew probed. Aidan took a minute to ponder the question. He knew exactly how to help Noria. First, she needed to legally change her name. Since she'd decided to live in the same state as him, he supposed they could help her settle in New York, perhaps find her a place to stay, a job, and encourage her to see a therapist. They could also help her return to school, or pick up a skill to better herself. She told me she would like to live in New York. I suppose we could help her settle there, Aidan responded, then went on to share his recommendations with Andrew. He concluded by saying, but we should still run it by her. All her life, I doubt she's had much choice in making decisions that affect her life. I suppose that should be the first change we let her experience. Andrew nodded with a thoughtful frown. We will speak to her in the morning, then. If she is heading to New York, we could let her return with the domestic staff. But we can't let her stay at the Hawthorne household, Andrew said. Could she stay at the apartment on Madison Avenue at least until we sort out this Camorra issue? Aidan suggested. Andrew shrugged. We could, but we still need to be certain of what happened to her father. I wouldn't want to inadvertently send a stalker to an apartment where my woman stays, Andrew replied. Aidan nodded. Once Anton comes, we will do a sweep of the surrounding waters with Jake before we head out, Aidan offered. Andrew seemed satisfied with the response, patted Aidan on his chest and walked away. A few hours later, Arya and Mary knocked on the cabin door where Alex and Anna were staying. Shortly after, Alex pulled the door open, his face lighting up with a smile when he saw Arya carrying a tray laden with a covered ceramic bowl. "What are you doing?" he asked with a soft chuckle as he took the tray from her and gave her a peck on the cheek before drawing her inside the room. Mary followed behind. "Good morning to you too, Alex. I brought a bowl of soup with freshly made bread for my bestie," she gushed. Alex chuckled. "I hope she's not the only one getting the special treatment," Alex quipped, making the ladies laugh. Anna rose from the bed, sitting on her heels and stretching out her arms for Arya. Arya hurried to the bed and drew her into a tight hug. "How are you doing?" Arya murmured close to her ear. "I'm fine, thanks to you all. I'm not going to say no to more pampering, though," Anna quipped as Arya drew back, laughing. Peering warmly into the other woman's eyes, Arya whispered, "I'm glad to hear that." Alex stepped to Arya's side to give her a side hug. "I know you are my friend, Alex, but I swear I will break your arm if you don't keep them off my woman," a grumpy, deep voice said from behind, startling them. Alex looked back at the same time Arya did and saw Nathaniel walking into the cabin with Jake right behind him. Laughter resounded in the cabin as Anna burst into a fit of giggles. Arya smacked Nathaniel on his pectorals as he cupped the nape of her neck to draw her into a quick kiss. "Christ in heaven, Nate, she already married you. You can relax," Alex quipped. Nathaniel pushed him out of his way to draw Anna into a hug. Alex narrowed his gaze at him, especially when he deliberately looked at him before pressing a peck on Anna's forehead. "You are a possessive grump," Alex said, shaking his head at him. Jake chuckled. "How are you, Anna?" Nathaniel rasped, pointedly ignoring Alex, making Arya and Anna laugh. "I'm fine, thanks to you guys," she replied, darting her eyes from Nathaniel to Arya and then Jake. "Thank you, Jake," she added. Jake nodded in response, a warm smile etching his attractive face. Mary promptly set up the food on the table and drew it to Anna on the bed as Nathaniel drew back from her. "That's good to hear. Now there has been a change of plans," Nathaniel began as he went back to stand behind Arya, giving Alex a handshake before wrapping his arms around Arya from behind. Arya smiled up at him before resting against his front. "What change of plans?" Alex inquired. "My family has a home in Manitoba, and I had planned to sail with the other ship to the nearest port so they could board a plane back home before we left. But I'm over this trip, and I have important matters to attend to, since I promised my beautiful wife a peaceful day." He paused to lower his gaze at Arya as she looked up at him. He winked at her, making her smile. "I say we leave them with security and take a day off to do nothing but eat, chat, listen to music, and go snow skiing before we have to face the real world," he finished, his voice soft and intimate. Arya grinned at him. "Sounds like fun," she replied. "I thought so too," Nathaniel responded. "I'm in. What do you say, babe?" Alex asked Anna. She sighed and replied, "I'm in too. I'd rather not see Jessica again after what she did, and I feel weird about seeing everyone after the incident." The door to the cabin opened and closed as Mary left. "What? You can't be serious, Anna. That was not your fault. The woman is a lunatic," Alex retorted. "Alex is right, Anna. You can't possibly feel responsible for getting pushed," Arya interjected. "I may have provoked her. You know, I stopped her from having Jake, Aidan, and the rest of the men as dates. She thought I was trying to get back at her for indulging us at the beach back at the resort," Anna explained with concern. "Okay, stop," Nathaniel interjected, making Anna look at him apologetically. "You have a great personality, Anna, but even this can't be excused. I'm sure Jake and the rest of the men are grateful you saved them from that witch. Her reaction showed what kind of psycho she is. It has nothing to do with you. She's sick and will be reported. The captain of the other ship will handle it, and my lawyer, Tom Hill, will make sure she doesn't get off easily. As for your reluctance to see our colleagues again, you should know they were all concerned about your well-being and didn't leave the top deck until they knew you were okay," Nathaniel explained. Jake and Arya nodded in confirmation when Anna looked at them for reassurance. "Boss had to give a speech," Jake quipped, in which he told everyone, "See you all never," Arya added. "What?" Alex asked, starting to laugh. "He called everyone psychos. It was hilarious," Arya supplied. "Oh, thanks, Nate," Anna cooed with girlish delight. "I appreciate you setting me up with Christine. I had a great time on our date," Jake shared, recalling the unexpected turn his night had taken. He had ended up cuddling with her for hours before they fell asleep. "Oh, you like her," Anna cooed. "Oh boy, I know that look and tone. You better run while you still can, Jake," Alex joked, eliciting laughter from everyone. "What can I say? I'm like a human Cupid," Anna quipped. Arya exchanged a glance with Nathaniel, observing as Anna gradually regained her lively personality. Meanwhile, Andrew joined Aidan in his cabin after breakfast to talk with Noria. The young woman nervously played with her hands as they questioned her, wondering if she had any plans now that she seemed free from her past. Andrew noticed how she kept glancing at Aidan for assistance. "Maybe we can suggest some ideas, and you can let us know if they sound like a good start for you," Andrew proposed. Noria quickly nodded, sitting up straighter in her chair. "My boss's wife has an apartment on Madison Avenue. My fiancée Anita stays there. Aidan thought it might be a good idea for you to stay with her temporarily while you figure things out," Andrew explained. Noria nodded eagerly, her eyes shining with excitement as she looked back and forth between Aidan and Andrew. "I really like Miss Anita. She's been very kind to me. She told me she's a nurse. Maybe she could mentor me." "I'd love to stay with her," Noria replied. Aidan exchanged a glance with Andrew. "All right then," Andrew began. "But there's a condition," Aidan interjected, surprising Andrew with his seriousness. "You have to agree to see a psychologist and a doctor at Dr. Hawthorne's clinic for a medical checkup and mental evaluation. You've been through a traumatic experience, and it's important to heal completely before moving forward, especially if you're staying with Miss Anita," Aidan added. He wanted Noria to start fresh mentally and physically, much like the transformation he and his Hawthorne guards had experienced. He hoped Noria could find peace and move forward positively. Andrew observed Noria closely as she trembled slightly before weakly nodding her agreement. He thought Aidan's condition was a wise addition, and he hoped it would help Noria find the peace and stability she needed. "I'll do it," Noria said, her voice initially unsure but gaining strength as she reaffirmed her commitment. "Good decision, Noria," Andrew remarked. The girl flashed him a smile before throwing a shy glance at Aidan. "Will I be seeing you, though?" she asked. Aidan smiled. "Only if you are good," he replied, winking at her. Her smile brightened. Andrew chuckled. "It's settled then," he remarked. Much later, while Arya, Anita, Miss Bella, and Miss Everly were preparing the boys to leave the ship, Nathaniel was speaking to the school president about their departure. Meanwhile, Aidan and Jake spot Anton piloting a craft towards the ship with another one not far behind. They waited for him to approach but didn't allow him to land. A ladder was dropped, and Jake and Aidan climbed up to join Anton. "Seems like I haven't seen you guys since forever, even though it's only been 48 hours, Anton quipped loudly over the sound of the blades and engine. "Oh, are you saying you missed us?" Aidan replied playfully, making Anton laugh. They closed the door and directed him away from the craft. After surveying the surrounding waters for a few nautical miles, they spotted Cooper's familiar fishing boat docked on a small island, with nothing else in sight but a volcano and dense vegetation. "What are we looking at?" Anton inquired curiously. Aidan started to answer but paused when he saw a signal of a campfire. Jake scrutinized the area and noticed movement on the weathered ship as someone resembling Cooper crawled out of the wheelhouse, gesturing upward as if seeking help. "There's someone there," Anton observed. "Yeah," Jake replied dryly. "Head back to the yacht," he added. "What? Aren't we going to help him?" Anton asked, bemused. "We'll send help. We're just not going to be the ones providing it," Jake replied, meeting and holding Aidan's gaze. Aidan nodded in agreement. "We'll notify the Coast Guards and give them the coordinates," Jake added. "Okay, it's your call," Anton replied resignedly and turned away. Aidan clenched his jaw. Cooper had survived, contrary to what the Camorra lady had said. Men like him were resilient. Andrew was right. There was a possibility that Cooper might seek revenge, possibly targeting Noria. They couldn't risk putting Anita in the middle of that. However, it was reassuring to know Cooper's fate, so now they know to be ready. Upon returning to the yacht, Jake immediately notified the captain, and an alert was sent to the Coast Guards with the coordinates of Cooper's location. Andrew, Charles, and Will assisted Liam and Owen onto Anton's craft, and a resounding cheer echoed along the deck when Anna emerged on the yacht's top deck. The display of affection brought tears to Anna's eyes as she waved back at her colleagues, with Andrew and Alex helping her onto the craft. 5 hours later, the craft hovered over a stunning snowy landscape, centered around a large log house surrounded by rows of Manitoba maple trees and extensive vegetation. The property was nestled within a gated expanse of rolling snow-covered hills. "This scene reminds me of Sylvan Ridge," Arya remarked aloud, prompting Nathaniel to gently kiss her temple. "I know," he murmured. As soon as the crafts landed and Liam and Owen were let out, they ran as fast as their little legs could carry them, laughing and screeching with glee. They reached the back of the house and fell onto the snow-covered ground, immediately starting to create snow angels. Arya chuckled at the sight while Nathaniel lifted her off the craft, meeting her gaze and smiling into her eyes as he carried her towards the house. Anna squealed as Ethan packed a snowball to hurl at her and Alex. Before long, everyone was being silly, running around in the snow and having a snowball fight. Laughter echoed across the grounds. "What do you think of my surprise?" Nathaniel rasped to Arya as he carefully set her down on the back porch. "I think it's brilliant, but that's not really surprising," she teased, reaching out to grab his square-shaped jaw and stretching up to press a kiss on his lips. Nathaniel gave her a boyish grin that made her heart skip a beat. "You're not allowed to do much but sit back and let me give you a foot rub. And if you behave, I'll extend it to a back rub when we get inside," he rasped, making Arya giggle. "We both know I will get my massage, whether I behave or otherwise," she quipped. "Oh, yeah?" He chuckled softly before covering her lips with his. Nathaniel went very still when a cold dash of snow hit the back of his head, scattering all over and onto Arya's face. Arya squeaked at the cold ice on her face before bursting into giggles. "Oh, you are so in trouble, Uncle Ethan," Liam said. Owen gazed at Ethan, not quite believing he had just thrown a snowball at his dad. "R.I.P., sir," Owen said as he scooped up a ball of snow. Liam followed suit. Nathaniel turned around, his stance menacing. "That was, an accident. I was aiming for your back, actually." Ethan stammered as he backed up, with Nathaniel advancing on him. Deciding to make a run for it, Ethan turned around and smack, he was hit in the face by 2 snowballs. "Hey, that isn't fair," Ethan protested, wiping the snow from his face. He saw Liam and Owen holding another snowball ready to aim. "Sorry, Uncle Ethan, but you hit our dad," Liam said, with Owen nodding. Echoes of laughter resounded across the grounds, especially when the boys threw the next snowball and Ethan dodged it. He jumped in triumph only to feel a cold heap of snow being dumped down the neck of his jacket. Oh, cold, cold," he squirmed, hopping about trying to get the ice out of his clothes. "Well done, boys," Nathaniel praised his sons for successfully distracting Ethan. But then he gasped when Liam threw a snowball at him, hitting his chest. He giggled at the stunned expression on his dad's face. "Sorry, Dad," Owen chimed in and did the same. Before Nathaniel could recover, the boys were already hightailing it towards their Uncle Andrew and Uncle Jake. "Hide us," they squealed. Andrew and Jake, laughing, scooped the 2 up and took off running. While everyone else enjoyed themselves, Miss Jonas and the household staff arranged a table in the backyard. Will and Lewis assisted in setting up an outdoor fire, while the staff headed to the kitchen to prepare dinner. Some of them started cleaning and ventilating the large house. By 7 p.m., the backyard looked like a medieval setup, with the log table laden with a variety of delicious dishes, expensive wines, and mouth-watering desserts. The aroma mixed with the cold air and burning logs to create a fresh, tantalizing scent of soul food. Tom Hill stood up to say a prayer, thanking God for safety and the food before they all settled in to eat. After the meal, when everyone was lounging about and listening to Tom tell tales of the last time he was at the log house with Nathaniel's parents, Andrew got a call. Nathaniel couldn't help feeling anxious as he watched Andrew stroll away to a considerable distance before answering. After watching him for a minute and seeing how he ran his fingers through his hair as he lowered his phone and glanced directly in his direction, Nathaniel knew trouble was coming. And he knew it was serious when Andrew gestured to Jake, Aidan, Charles, Will, and the rest of the men to join him. Nathaniel looked away from his men to Arya, his sons Liam and Owen, and his friends. Seeing the contentment and happiness etched on their faces, he knew he had at least fulfilled his promises. I seem to recall there's an outstanding subterranean refuge my father built here." "Tom, do you remember it?" Nathaniel asked, meeting and holding Tom Hill's gaze. "What do you mean, do I remember it?" "We planned it together. It was for—" He paused, seemingly just realizing why Nathaniel had phrased the question that way. Nodding, he said, "I'll do you one better. Anyone up for a tour?" Tom Hill asked, getting up with enthusiasm. "I want to see it," Liam exclaimed, standing up on his chair. Owen imitated him, making everyone laugh. "Of course you want to. Get ready to have your mind blown." Tom Hill effused, making the boys giddy with excitement. They left their chairs and ran to flank Grandpa Hill, each holding one of his hands and skipping along as he led them away. Nathaniel stood up, extending his hand to Arya and Miss Everly. Alex did the same for Anna, and Ethan offered his hand to Anita, eliciting laughter from her. One by one, they all rose to follow Tom Hill away from the main building, heading down a path to the north of the grounds. Nathaniel looked back at Andrew and caught his subtle nod. Out of the corner of his eye, he could see Jake, Anton, and Aidan running to the craft. Nathaniel didn't bother to create any sense of urgency as Tom led their family to the subterranean refuge. The night was calm, the snow slowly drifting down and creating layers upon layers of the snowy ground they padded on at leisure. Although Tom Hill tried to act calm, he could sense something was amiss and wondered what was truly happening. But Nate's subtle hint was clear. He was to lead their family away from danger while keeping them preoccupied. Upon passing over a brook bridge, they happened upon a nicely ridged maze. Tom Hill used a facade of excitement to make everyone hurry through, leading them to the center and to an iron drone-like cover. He quickly tapped the keys on a panel embedded in a covered panel, entered the password, and stood back as the iron latch twisted open like the jaw of a deadly shark to reveal a mechanical elevator. "Shall we?" Tom Hill grinned widely. They helped the ladies in, then the twins. When only Nathaniel and Tom remained outside, Tom leaned in. "We are under attack, aren't we?" he whispered. Nathaniel's sidelong glance and slight nod were all the confirmation he needed. Tom sighed as Ethan motioned them into the elevator. The elevator was spacious and fitted all 9 adults and the twins. Once inside, Tom Hill pulled a side latch that made the cover close up again, and the elevator started its descent. "Can you make it go faster, Grandpa Hill?" Liam asked in uncontrolled excitement, making everyone laugh. "You've got to learn patience, son," Tom Hill quipped. Anna tapped the tip of Liam's nose, making him giggle. Nathaniel, holding Arya to his side, reached forward to pull his nose and then Owen's. The two beamed at him but were quickly distracted when the elevator stopped and the doors opened to reveal a hallway with touch lanterns lining the side walls. Nathaniel pressed a kiss on Arya's forehead before stepping out along with Tom to ignite the touch lanterns, making the hallway come alive with a fiery orange glow. "Cool," Owen and Liam exclaimed. But before they could charge out of the elevator, Ethan and Alex caught the two as if on reflex, laughing as they lifted them off the ground. "You two are like Labrador dogs, my God," Ethan exclaimed playfully. "Your energy is making me feel old," he grumbled. Arya and Anna giggled and started to tease him. "Grandpa Ethan," Arya quipped in a loud whisper, making Nathaniel and Alex chuckle. The rest of the group smiled at their playful banter. "Should we get you a cane, Grandpa Ethan?" Anna teased. "Don't forget his hearing aid, Anna," Arya added, laughing. "And maybe a nice cozy blanket for nap time," Anna suggested with a grin. Ethan rolled his eyes, but couldn't help but smile at their antics. All right, you two. Keep it up and I'll start calling you the Energizer Bunnies," he retorted. Gentle laughter bounced off of the enclosed space. "Join us," Tom Hill invited, and they all milled out of the elevator, trailing after him. The hallway was surprisingly modern, lined with white and champagne gold streaked marble that shimmered beautifully under the soft glow of the lights. One might expect the place to smell of wet earth, but instead, it had a subtle and enticing fragrance. At the end of the first hallway, they turned into another, and everyone gasped in awe at the sight on one side of the hall. It was a large fish tank with small golden fish swimming among beautiful, colorful coral. "Wow!" Owen exclaimed with a broad grin, sharing a smile with his brother, then his dad and Mum, before settling his gaze on Grandpa Hill. You are right, Grandpa. It is truly magnificent, he added. You haven't seen anything yet, buddy, Tom replied with a warm smile, ushering the group deeper into the subterranean refuge. They came upon a garden of rare flowers, a collection that left the group in awe. Arya figured that explained the exotic scent. Anna, who was particularly impressed and pleasantly surprised, stepped forward and started to name each flower's botanical name like a proud mama bear. That's night-blooming jasmine, she said, pointing to a cluster of delicate white flowers that emitted a sweet, intoxicating scent. Orchid cacti, she continued, indicating the vibrant, spiky blooms in shades of pink and red. That one there is ghost orchids, she added, gesturing to the ethereal, almost translucent flowers that seemed to float in midair. And that one there is chocolate cosmos, she finished, pointing to the dark maroon flowers with a rich, chocolatey fragrance, her voice filled with restrained excitement. You really know your flowers, Bella commented with a warm smile. My knowledge is limited to roses, lilies, and houseplants like snake plants, pothos, and maybe a peace lily, she added sheepishly. You're far better than me. I only know about houseplants. But when it comes to human anatomy, I'm your go-to person. Or in this case, woman. Anita chimed in, prompting everyone to chuckle. Trust me, you're not alone there. I'm completely clueless about flowers. That's why we have florists, right? For $100, they solve all my flower problems. Suddenly, I've got a beautiful mix of roses, lilies, carnations, daisies, and sweet chrysanthemums ready for Milady, Ethan quipped with charming relish. Nathaniel shook his head, laughing to himself. You are such a nerd, he teased. What do you know? You never send flowers to your dates, Ethan said, throwing a balled-up piece of paper at Nathaniel. I did send flowers to a date, Nathaniel rasped in response. Bullshit. Name one person you sent flowers to, Ethan challenged. Me, Arya remarked sheepishly. You don't count, Arya, Ethan retorted, glaring at her. Arya giggled. Anna playfully punched Ethan on the forearm. You ruined my friend is what you did, Ethan added. Same goes for you, Anna Morris, he said, gesturing at her, making Alex laugh. Nathaniel is far from clueless about flowers, I'll have you know, Arya defended. Nathaniel chuckled, tightening his hold around her. Ethan silently mimicked her, causing the four to laugh. I would be clueless too if not for my mom, Anna replied. She was a botanist, and I loved going on foraging trips with her. Though it wasn't really foraging, but flower hunting, we called it foraging to make it sound more adventurous. I'm surprised I still remember the names. It was a long time ago, she said with a hint of nostalgia in her tone. Lucky you, that sounds fun. The only bonding time I had with my parents was joining them in dissecting a cadaver with perfect precision, Arya quipped. Some of us can't relate, Ethan replied, then added, I'm sorry I missed your dad's funeral, Arya. I found out too late, and even if I was on my last breath, my employer wouldn't have let me off for a minute. Arya chuckled, throwing him a glance. She responded, It's okay, thank you, Ethan. They continued walking down the hall with Tom Hill, Liam, and Owen far ahead. I suppose foraging is something we could indulge in once we're married if you're still interested in such activities, Alex asked, noticing how the memory was making Anna look sad and wanting to lift her spirits. Anna gave him a warm smile and nodded. He wrapped an arm around her shoulders and drew her in for a kiss before they continued trailing after everyone. Earlier on, Andrew sat beside Anita, enjoying the relaxed atmosphere with her and the others. He appreciated Nathaniel's choice to take a break at this wonderful place. However, he never cared much for snow. He had always viewed the seasonal weather as a dreary experience, except of course at Christmas time when it was just part of the aesthetics. Visiting the Hawthornes' home in Manitoba often felt like a pleasant escape. Perhaps it was because they never stayed long, and there was always so much to see and do on the property. Andrew loved exploring the woods to hunt and gather firewood, enjoying the competitive spirit it brought out in everyone. The stables housed horses, and the groundskeeper managed livestock, giving the place a rustic farm feel. The log house offered a glimpse into a bygone era, though its amenities were far from basic. The main building, a 2-story structure with about 25 rooms, dwarfed the accommodation in Riverview. The underground grotto was a marvel, blending modern conveniences with resilient infrastructure, as if preparing for any catastrophe. Exploring the grotto was a surreal experience, providing a temporary escape from the outside world. Andrew had eagerly anticipated retiring for the night in one of the cave rooms with Anita nestled in his arms. However, the sudden chime of his phone signaled an interruption he feared would disrupt the peaceful night. Recognizing the caller, he excused himself to ensure his conversation wouldn't spoil the evening for everyone. Walking away to a considerable distance, he answered the call. "Hello," he spoke quietly into the phone. "How come Henri Cavalier men know precisely where you guys are?" the voice at the other end inquired. "What?" Andrew responded, his brows furrowing as he tried to process the information. He could say it was Henri Cavalier's messenger, but even though she overheard Nathaniel talking to Samuel Cavalier on the phone, the lady was still aboard the yacht in solitary confinement under watch. There was no way she could have relayed that information unless she wasn't alone, as they all thought. But if that were the case, her accomplices would have had to be on the yacht during her interrogation to hear their conversation and obtain that kind of information. Another possibility was if one of their men betrayed them, which was unlikely, or perhaps one of them had a tracker on them, which would have been detected upon boarding the craft. There were embedded sensors on the craft that automatically detected RF signals, magnetic fields, heat signatures, and electronic components from trackers, and he ruled that out too. The last, albeit crazy option, was that Samuel Cavalier accidentally revealed it to Henry in a fit of argument. Whoever the mole was, Andrew was certain that his informant wasn't just calling him to play 20 questions. "Are they planning to attack?" Andrew asked in a tense tone, going straight to the point and ignoring the question. "I'm sorry I got the info late, but I think you still had about an hour to get out of there," he replied. "Do you know how many?" Andrew asked, ignoring the man's suggestion. "About 20. They are coming through the border, loaded in 3 trucks. I heard they have a chopper too," he replied. "What's their mission, do you know?" Andrew asked. "I don't. But the chopper is carrying a cage," he supplied. "A cage?" Andrew repeated, nodding. "Thanks for the heads up." "I will send your money ASAP," he replied. "Thanks, man," he said, and the call ended. Andrew lowered the phone to his side, his other hand running through his hair. 1 hour was too short to evacuate everyone, and packing them all into a craft without knowing the attacker's arsenal was risky. Instinctively, he glanced in Nathaniel's direction, and to his pleasant surprise, Nathaniel was already looking back at him, his darkened gaze conveying that he knew trouble was imminent. Andrew was beyond impressed. He looked away from Nathaniel and gestured to Jake, Aidan, and Charles, beckoning them over as their eyes met his. They hurried over to him, and a minute later he noticed everyone at the table getting up and heading towards the northern grounds. Andrew almost smiled, especially when Nathaniel glanced back over his shoulder at him. He couldn't help but think Nathaniel could have excelled as an undercover agent with his innate ability to read body language. It was surreal. As soon as the men gathered around him, Andrew quickly briefed them on the situation. Since they didn't know what they would be up against, they decided to prepare for an all-out war. Jake and Anton were assigned to man the 2 crafts, while one of the crafts was to carry Aidan to an elevated platform for a lookout. "If we use the craft's arsenal to attack, we will have casualties for sure. Are we allowed to kill the Camorras now?" Lewis asked. For some reason, the question made Andrew go very still. Henri Cavalier was ruthless and vengeful, hiding out in Brooklyn and not at his sons. Despite the death of his brother and nephew, he remained in the United States and hadn't returned home. Even if he was covering up, he would have at least shown his family some respect and gone home. Perhaps he didn't want it publicly known that he was wounded. If he was still after them despite his informant being aboard the ship without communication, it meant he was getting his information elsewhere. The conversation between Nathaniel and the Camorra the night before replayed in his head. And then it suddenly clicked. Who would benefit if Henri Cavalier went against Nathaniel Hawthorne, causing Nathaniel to end the bastard's life? Who would gain if Samuel Cavalier found out who had been responsible for his sickness and the killings of his first son and grandson? Information which Nathaniel could testify to. "Please don't send me to her. I will do anything." Henri Cavalier's messenger's plea resounded in his head. "Shit!" Andrew cursed loudly. "What?" Lewis asked. She is using us as a fucking pawn, Andrew growled. Who? Will demanded, bemused. Nathaniel let Tom Hill continue leading the group until they reached the hallway leading to the grotto. As they turned the corner, they saw the blue shimmer of reflective light bouncing off the marble walls. What is that? Liam exclaimed excitedly, wriggling out of Ethan's arms. Christ in heaven, Liam, settle down, Ethan remarked. But I want to see what's over there, Liam protested, glaring at him. I don't know if you've noticed, Liam, but we are all heading that way, Ethan whispered conspiratorially, earning more glares from Liam. Patience is a virtue, Liam, Owen teased. Liam shot an irritated glance at his brother, who was grinning lazily. Like you don't want to know either, Liam fired back. Nathaniel chuckled, deciding to rescue Ethan from his overly active son. He held out his hand, taking Liam from Ethan. Liam wrapped his small arms around Nathaniel's neck and continued to glare at Owen and Ethan. Anna and Alex couldn't hold back a laugh. He is so adorable, Anna whispered to Alex. The two shared a long, tender gaze. When they reached the grotto's entrance, Tom Hill announced, Now welcome to what I call a natural spa. Everyone entered, and a collective gasp echoed through the enclosed space. In one corner of what looked like a picturesque cavern was a large basin of shimmering water illuminated from underneath, giving the cavern a bluish hue that looked magical. Standing on the edge, one could see the bottom layered with colourful coral, but there were no fish. Nathaniel walked to a lever on the side, pulled it down, and the surface of the water began to bubble and produce steam. The room temperature was perfect compared to the snowy landscape above ground. Can we swim in it, Daddy? Liam whispered in Nathaniel's ear. Nathaniel drew back to look into his eyes and said, Yes, son, but with supervision. It's a rocky plain. Liam nodded. This is beautiful, Anna said. Wait till you see the lodges. They're straight out of Mountain Man magazine, Tom quipped. Nathaniel chuckled as he put Liam down, rolled up his trousers, and then did the same for Liam. Nathaniel then reached for Aria's hand to help her settle down on the edge of the water basin. Alex put Owen down, who said, Thanks, Uncle Alex, before hurrying to join his parents and Liam. Nathaniel quickly helped him roll up his trousers too, removing his footwear before holding the boy's hands to lead them to Aria. He then sat by the edge of the water and dipped his legs in it, feeling the warm, soothing water against his skin. He lifted Liam and lowered him into the water. As the water reached his knees, he scrutinized Liam keenly, smiling at the gleam of excitement in his eyes. After setting Liam down to sit beside him, he did the same for Owen, just as the adults began lowering themselves around the edge of the water to dip their feet into the bubbling water. Ah, this feels good, Ethan gushed. You can take a swim if you want, Tom said. Yes, and thank you, Ethan replied as he got up. Towels should be in the rooms down that hallway, Nathaniel added, gesturing to another hallway to the left of the grotto. Thanks, man, Ethan said, hurrying in that direction. Anyone care to join me? He called over his shoulder. Shall we? Alex said to Anna, who nodded eagerly, and the two left to explore the concave. Tom Hill extended a hand to Bella. She threw him a warm smile, placed her hand in his, and let him lead her away from the grotto. Would you like to swim too, Liam Owen? Anita called out, her voice ringing loudly in the enclosed space. Liam and Owen looked at their mom and nodded after she gave them the go-ahead. Miss Everly and Anita came for the two and led them away, leaving Nathaniel and Aria alone in the grotto. This feels good, Aria murmured as she leaned against Nathaniel, resting her head on his bicep. The water or me? Nathaniel rasped softly. Aria giggled as she raised her head to look into his face. He grinned at her and slowly lowered his head to press a kiss on her lips with their gazes locked. Want to check out our room, Mrs. Hawthorne? He rasped, nibbling on her upper lip. Aria responded, closing her eyes and reveling in the sweet torture of his lips on her. I would love that very much, Mr. Hawthorne, she quipped. He chuckled, drawing back from her. He got up, helped her to her feet, interlocked his fingers with hers, and drew her close as they headed away. I hope you found the day relaxing at least, Nathaniel probed, trying hard not to dwell on what must be happening above ground, and hoping his men had it under control. Trust me, it feels like a vacation now, Aria reassured him. He nodded. How's your wound? Arya inquired, craning her neck to look up at his face, quietly studying his profile. She noticed his deliberate, slow gait and worried that he might be in pain, especially given how active he had been since they arrived. "It's fine. I have the very best doctor and nurse," he rasped with a smile, glancing at her with dark hooded eyes. "Don't worry, babe. Anita is consistent with my shots," he reassured her. "That's good to know," Arya replied in a soft whisper before adding, "When was the last time you were here?" Nathaniel's brows pulled together in a pensive frown before he replied, "That should be after my parents died. I think sometime before my diagnosis. I don't come here as often as I should. I suppose it's because I never really had to worry about the place falling apart. We sometimes rent it out to film crews and vacationers. And you've met Aaron. You can see how efficient he is. The place looks clean and well cared for." Arya nodded. "I thought he seemed like a nice person." "I like his wife too. Do they have kids?" she asked, thinking back to the couple Nathaniel introduced to her earlier. No kids. He just got married to Lydia last year. She came here for a vacation with her friends, and I suppose there was something about the reclusive ex-serviceman that got to her, he quipped. "According to her, she came for vacation and never left," he added with a grin. "Oh, that's so sweet," Arya responded. Before they reached a massive iron door on one side of the wall, Arya could hear Liam and Owen's laughter echoing in the concave, accompanied by low classical music that enhanced the lively atmosphere underground. "Don't worry, Tom will keep an eye on things," Nathaniel assured Arya, noticing her glance back over her shoulder towards where they had come. "Oh, I know, I'm just glad everyone is having fun," she replied. Nathaniel unlocked the door with his fingerprints and they entered the dark concave. Arya expected Nathaniel to switch on the lights, but he didn't. Instead, he held her close and guided her through the darkness. Arya blinked, trying to adjust her eyes to the dimness, and gradually began to discern the shadowy space as Nathaniel led her down a flight of stairs to an area resembling an indoor sauna. There was another pool ahead, but smaller than the one in the grotto. "Music!" Nathaniel called out in his deep baritone, and soft music started to play. Arya smiled to herself, impressed, as he turned towards her. Though unable to see his face clearly, she could feel his intense, smouldering gaze. "Light," he rasped, and a gentle glow from candlelight illuminated the space. Arya couldn't help but feel awestruck by the magnificent beauty of the concave. It harmonized rustic charm with modern aesthetics, exuding a luxurious atmosphere. "Okay, I understand why filming companies would want this place. It's magical," Arya said softly, almost in a whisper. "I'm glad you like it," he murmured, his hands cupping the sides of her neck, his thumbs gently stroking her supple skin. "Take off your clothes, Ariana." His voice deepened with a commanding intensity that sent shivers down her spine and quickened her heartbeat. "Baby," Arya whispered with a rush of ardent desire. Then she remembered he was wounded and shouldn't be going into the water. "My love, you can't get your stitches wet. You can't go in there," she quickly added. "I know, but you can. But not before I make a meal of you, my lovely Ariana. Last warning." "Take everything off now," Nathaniel commanded, capturing her lips in a slow, passionate kiss that gradually grew fervent and urgent. Breathing heavily in impassioned anticipation, Arya quickly shrugged off her jacket and then her dress, before hurriedly reaching for the waistband of Nathaniel's trousers. Meanwhile, above ground, Andrew wrestled with the startling revelation that they had all been manipulated as pawns in the Camorra's scheme. It wasn't solely Henri Cavalier orchestrating the game. His sister Anne Cavalier also played a significant role. Anne, the overlooked daughter, had been relegated to administrative tasks. Given her role as her father's caregiver and assistant, one could easily forget she was also a Camorra through and through, just as ruthless as her brothers, and, as Sean Cavalier described, level-headed. Level-headed indeed, Andrew muttered to himself. It takes a cold, manipulative human to sit back and let her brother think he had them all fooled, just to use it against him. Andrew couldn't quite fathom how Anne intended to handle her father's illness. Did she allow it to happen knowing he could be saved, or did she actually want him gone? If her brother met a similar fate, then the throne would be hers. Evidently, she was skilled at playing the queen, given how terrified her father's people were of her. Sounds like a bloody Game of Thrones, Will responded, his brows furrowed at Andrew's deduction that Anne Cavalier was the real puppet master. Shall we tell the boss? Will asked. There will be time for that, Andrew replied. Besides, I don't want the others to know and panic. What do we do then? Lewis asked. Assuming we're here and suddenly get attacked, what's our plan? Andrew threw back at them. We fight back and protect our own, Will replied, nodding. We don't know who these people are, so we'll treat them accordingly. I'll inform the local authorities as soon as we spot them. Meanwhile, we shoot on sight. Jake will take care of the chopper or whatever they're coming with. Our job is to ensure they don't breach this compound, Andrew stated. The others nodded and dispersed. 2 guards remained with Andrew. We should notify Aaron, one of the guards remarked. Andrew grinned, recalling that Aaron was an ex-serviceman too. A grumpy, mean bastard. He chuckled to himself. They discovered Aaron in the stables, meticulously grooming a white stallion. Hey Aaron, quick question. If I informed you that we had incoming bad guys with nefarious intentions, what would your response be? Andrew queried as he approached. Aaron looked up, observing Andrew's approach without halting his task. I'd inquire about their numbers and whether anyone would miss them, Aaron drawled lazily, prompting a chuckle from Andrew. I've heard there are about 20 arriving via chopper and 2 trucks, Andrew continued. Aaron nodded knowingly. I suppose that explains why we have Hawthorne Crafts surveying the grounds, he remarked. Yes, Andrew replied, his tone carrying a hint of apology. Tell them to stand down, there's no need for that here, Aaron replied casually. Why's that, Aaron? Andrew asked, his brow furrowing. You'll soon understand. Recall your men, Aaron replied, sounding unperturbed. Andrew hesitated, exchanged a glance with the other guards, and they shrugged. Andrew then contacted Jake and Anton, instructing them to return and fetch Aiden. After Andrew ended the call, Aaron gestured for him to pick a horse. With a slight frown, Andrew complied, selecting a chestnut-colored mount, while Aaron led out the white horse he had been grooming. You 2 can take a seat on the boss's front porch. We will join you soon to watch the spectacle together. Beer or wine? Aaron said to the other guards. They exchanged puzzled looks before one of them said, beer should do just fine. Aaron nodded in response. Beer it is, he replied, as they watched him mount his horse. Andrew followed suit, and together they galloped away from the stables. Andrew couldn't quite remember the last time he had ridden a horse, but he found himself keeping pace with Aaron easily. Despite the looming danger, he couldn't help but relish the excitement of the ride, the cold breeze against his exposed face, and the snow drifting like powdery dust over the plain. Hiya! Aaron shouted as he sped up. Andrew grinned to himself, kicked his horse's flank, and leaned forward into a racing posture. They rode down a well-worn path, past a frozen creek, and along a route framed by maple trees until they reached a drone-like atrium. Aaron leaped off his horse before it had even come to a full stop. Fucking show-off, Andrew muttered under his breath. He didn't try to mimic the move. Stroking his horse's mane, he said, "Good boy," before dismounting gracefully. Seeing that Aaron didn't bother tying his horse, Andrew assumed they were well trained to stay put. Still, before following Aaron, he said to his horse, "I will be right back." A moment later, Andrew entered the building and found himself in an expansive hall. One side was lined with computers and a massive central processing unit equipped with futuristic transparent monitors. Another part of the hall featured wine racks reminiscent of those in a wine cellar. Andrew's eyes darted around, noting that most of the circular interior was lined with the wooden wine racks fitted to go in sync with the shape of the interior. The center of the glass ceiling was adorned with a massive chandelier, casting a soft glow that illuminated the space in a sophisticated hue, giving the room a rustic yet romantic allure. The polished thick floorboards complemented the dark wood aesthetics. For some reason, Andrew imagined the place as a blend of a bar and a library where gentlemen could drink and engage in intellectual discourse. He was certain the computers were a recent addition. Andrew hurried across the room to join Aaron, who was flipping switches and turning on the monitors. He wanted to ask what Aaron was doing, but the images on the monitor froze the words in his mouth. Slowly he closed his mouth, surprise welling up inside him. "You have a defense drone?" Andrew asked in disbelief. "Yes," Aaron replied noncommittally. "How the hell did you manage that?" Andrew asked. a tad impressed and a tad upset he hadn't thought of that as part of the security for the Hawthorne New York house. "I used the security money," Aaron remarked, giving Andrew a smug smirk over his shoulder. "Security money?" Andrew repeated, skeptical. "I was allocated money to hire security personnel to patrol the place. I kept it. We don't need more people roaming around. Then I was allocated money for security gadgets." "The Hawthorne spends an insane amount of money on security," Aaron said. Andrew glared at him. "I know that, Aaron. I'm the head of the fucking department," he snapped, without meaning to. Aaron turned to him, evidently trying to seem contrite but failing miserably. "Why do I have the feeling you're not pleased to find out I didn't use the money for what was expected? Or do I detect a hint of resentment?" Aaron teased, enunciating the last word. "Where did you get a defense drone, Aaron?" Andrew inquired, a tad irritated. "I heard that the Hawthorne Aerospace and Security Office needed a location to test security gadgets, so I proposed the idea of deploying a drone here. With this land being rich in treasures and frequented by important individuals for work and vacations, I offered to allocate our security funds for this initiative. They agreed, considering it an investment in Hawthorne's protection," he explained. "And how come I didn't know about this?" Andrew fired back. "Probably because they want to see if it's viable before they tell the admin guys," Aaron said. Andrew noted the jab and folded his arms across his broad chest, giving Aaron a level look. "How long have you been testing it?" Andrew asked. "About 6 months," Aaron replied gingerly. Andrew let out a sigh. "I suppose it does work if you're confident enough to use it in this situation," Andrew remarked in resignation. "Oh, it works. I just haven't reported back on its effectiveness yet, which I guess is one of the reasons you still don't know," Aaron supplied. "Fine, show me how it works," Andrew invited. Aaron's smile vanished, replaced by a furrowed brow. "What?" Andrew asked, noticing Aaron's hesitation. "I was actually expecting a more intense interrogation from you when you found out," Aaron admitted, disappointment evident in his tone. "Aaron, we have hostiles approaching, remember?" Andrew replied slowly and deliberately, as if speaking to someone slow-witted. "Oh, right," Aaron responded, his mischievous grin returning. "I guess you'll continue questioning me later." "For heaven's sake, Aaron," Andrew exclaimed in frustration. "You really need to chill out, man," Aaron chided as Andrew glared at him. All right. Getting right to it. The drone uses a combination of sensors to detect incoming threats. See this radar screen?" He pointed to one of the monitors displaying a real-time feed, explaining as he operated the controls. "It constantly scans the area for any potential projectiles." Andrew leaned in, watching the screen. "And it can differentiate between different types of threats," he remarked under his breath. "Exactly," Aaron confirmed. "It uses advanced algorithms to identify the speed, trajectory, and type of projectile. For example, if a missile is detected, the system calculates its path and predicts the point of impact." Aaron pressed a few buttons, and another monitor lit up, showing a 3D model of the surrounding area. "This is our shield activation interface. Once a threat is confirmed, the electromagnetic shield generator kicks in. Watch this simulation." On the screen, a virtual missile approached their location. As it neared, a translucent dome appeared around the target area. The missile struck the dome and ricocheted off, veering off course. Andrew whistled softly. "Impressive. So the shield can actually deflect missiles?" Aaron grinned. "Not just missiles. The energy barrier can absorb the impact of explosives as well. It dissipates the energy across the shield, reducing the damage." He then flipped another switch, and a different display came up, showing a live feed from the drone's perspective. "We also have laser interceptors. If the shield isn't enough, these bad boys can take out the threat mid-air." A targeting reticle appeared on the screen, locking onto a simulated target. A laser beam shot out, destroying the target instantly. Andrew nodded, evidently impressed. "What about the electronic warfare systems you mentioned?" Aaron tapped another screen. "Right here. We can jam the guidance systems of incoming missiles, causing them to miss their target. It's a backup measure if the physical defenses fail." Andrew watched as Aaron manipulated the controls with ease. "And all this is controlled autonomously?" he inquired. For the most part, yes," Aaron replied. "The AI handles threat detection and response, but we can override it if needed. The system learns and adapts, improving its effectiveness over time. Andrew drew back, crossing his arms. I've got to hand it to you, Aaron, but how reliable is it in real-world conditions? Aaron shrugged modestly. Like I said, I've been running tests for 6 months, and it's performed exceptionally well. We haven't had a single breach in our simulations. Andrew let out a sigh. All right, do what you must. Aaron nodded, a hint of excitement in his eyes. You got it. Let's take this baby for a spin, he muttered as he activated the drone. What's next? Andrew inquired as Aaron pulled back with a satisfied smile. Chill beers and barbecue, Aaron declared. Andrew suppressed a chuckle. The guy was like a child with a new toy, but he had to admit it was a pretty cool innovation. Meanwhile, Jake, Aiden, and Anton head back to regroup with the others in front of the main building, perplexed by Andrew's decision to call them off, and speculating that he must have received new information suggesting the attack was not imminent. Approaching the massive log house, they were startled by the distinct sound of helicopters. Jake's heart raced as he, alongside Anton and Aiden, turned to witness 3 helicopters hovering side by side, launching missiles towards the house. Aiden could feel his heart pounding in his ears as the lethal machines sped towards them. Take cover, Anton shouted urgently to the other guards waiting by the log house. Jake, Aiden, and Anton swiftly dove for cover, and so did the other men on the front porch of the house. Jake hit the cold, snow-covered ground hard, momentarily knocking the wind out of himself, as the sky above them illuminated with an expanding orange glow. He braced for the explosion that would surely reduce the log house to rubble, but instead, all they saw was the glow. There was no accompanying heat. I'll be damned, Aiden muttered in disbelief. Jake glanced up just in time to witness the explosives rebounding off an unseen shield, deflecting back towards the helicopters. They struck their targets, rupturing them into fiery fragments and sending metal shards flying through the air. A surreal silence filled the aftermath, broken only by the distant sound of approaching hooves. The 3 men rose to their feet, brushing snow off their clothes. Aiden glanced back and saw the other guards equally stunned. What in the world was that? Jake exclaimed, addressing no one in particular. Hawthorne Defense Drone. You are welcome, Aaron replied casually as he dismounted. Hawthorne what? Anton echoed, still processing the unexpected turn of events. Aiden chuckled incredulously, placing a hand on his chest as he settled onto the snow-covered ground. Man, that was insane, he managed between chuckles. You crazy bastard, what did you do now? Jake asked with a grin, watching Aaron stride confidently across the field towards them with beer packs in hand. Isn't it great working for a family so delightfully paranoid? Aaron quipped with a smirk. Jake chuckled, shaking his head in amazement as he settled down beside Aiden in the snow. Andrew stepped forward, offering them foil-wrapped beef barbecue. All right, so we can handle aircrafts. What's the plan for any ground threats? Charles inquired. In the underground safe house, Nathaniel and Arya lay on a makeshift bed next to the pool, classical music softly playing in the background, blending with the serene sound of water cascading into the sauna, creating a rippling symphony with the gentle piano notes. The air was filled with the subtle, distinct sound of their breathing. Nathaniel held Arya close, his arms wrapped around her, one across her forehead, the other across her chest, holding her firmly as they moved together in perfect harmony. I love you, Arya whispered shakily. I love you more. You make me feel so powerless and vulnerable, and it's incredible how I no longer feel threatened by it, Nathaniel whispered gently into her ear. Arya trembled against him, angling her neck for a kiss. That's because you know you have the same effect on me. And you have all of me, Arya murmured against his lips. Later on, Nathaniel cradled Arya's swollen belly, tracing patterns on her skin, smiling as he felt the babies pressing against his touch. Arya chuckled softly. They're still wide awake. I doubt their older brothers are still up, Arya commented in a soft, hushed voice. It's been quite a day. They should be asleep, he replied, his voice low and husky. Have you decided on the twins' school yet? Arya asked, tilting her head to meet his gaze. Nathaniel chuckled. I agree with you. They need regular interaction with kids their age, or Liam will surely give us both grey hairs in our 30s, he joked. Aye. Arya chuckled along, shaking with laughter. Nathaniel's smile deepened as he admired her radiant skin and beauty. He gently cupped her cheek and leaned in to kiss her. When he pulled back, he whispered, "I think it's safe to say Owen, being the calm one, will help keep an eye on his brother. Owen isn't calm when he's in protective mode." "I'm surprised you haven't seen that side of him yet," Arya teased in a playful tone. Nathaniel grinned, remembering Ethan's comment about Liam inheriting all his impishness. Perhaps Owen also has a fiery personality, but he's just better at keeping it in check. A little bit of spirit won't hurt anyone. "It builds character," Nathaniel quipped. "You say that because that's how you are," Arya teased back. Nathaniel shrugged casually. "It's good for people to know you can be calm and the exact opposite when provoked." "It's a good thing because Liam is going to get them both into a lot of trouble," Nathaniel joked, eliciting giggles from Arya. "Well, as long as they keep it to a minimum, I suppose it's fine," he added, his voice warm and amused. "Don't worry, we'll handle it," Arya assured him with a smile. He grinned and resumed stroking her stomach. "Have you thought of names for our boys yet?" Nathaniel asked, his eyes gleaming with happiness which stirred emotions in Arya. She shook her head. "Do you have any ideas?" she asked, her voice reflecting her emotions. "No, but we still have time." "I'll start giving it serious thought," he reassured her. "Only cute baby names, Nathan," she teased lightly. "Yes, babe, only cute baby names," he promised, smiling into her eyes. "Let's get you to bed," he whispered softly. Nathaniel held Arya in his arms, aware that they had only a few weeks left before the babies arrived. He resented the Camorra for choosing this time to drag his family into their chaos. Nonetheless, he was determined to find a way out and keep his family safe. Pressing a kiss to her lips, Nathaniel pulled away and walked over to where they had discarded their clothes. He gathered and straightened Arya's clothing on a side chair before dressing himself. Once he was sure she had fallen asleep, he left and headed back to the grotto. He was pleasantly surprised to find Tom and Ethan there, both relaxing with a drink. As soon as they saw him, they stood up. "I was wondering when you'd managed to sneak away," Tom Hill said. "Wait, you knew he'd be awake?" Ethan asked. "We have a security situation, Ethan," Nathaniel said, meeting his friend's gaze. "Another attack?" Ethan asked, his voice a mix of shock and concern. "I'm not sure, but I intend to find out," Nathaniel replied, turning away to head out. "Do you think it's safe?" Tom Hill asked, as he and Ethan followed Nathaniel. "We can't just hide here, Tom. We need to know what's going on up there," Nathaniel replied in a firm, authoritative tone. "Oh my God, so bringing us here was a ploy to keep us safe. Damn, you two are good." "I didn't suspect a thing," Ethan interjected. A few minutes later, they were above ground, and the cold hit them hard, a stark contrast to the warmth below. Nathaniel drew his gun, and Tom did the same. The three walked side by side, making their way back to the log house. A bright, explosive flash in the sky, followed by a loud boom, caught their attention. Nathaniel hurried to a clearing and watched as choppers were blown to bits by what appeared to be their own arsenal. Slowly, he lowered his gun and tucked it away, exchanging a look with Tom. "Now you see why I said managing the ranch was never a problem," Nathaniel said, causing the older man to chuckle. "Is that a countermeasure drone?" Ethan asked excitedly.